Hello. In this lecture, I will talk about the importance and the limitations of the ecological pyramids. So, in our previous lectures, we have talked about the different types of ecological pyramids. We have seen the pyramids of number, pyramids of biomass, and the pyramids of energy. Now, let us consider what is the importance of these ecological pyramids, and there are some limitations of the ecological pyramids, and we will discuss about that. So, first, let us talk about the importance of the ecological pyramids. Now, the ecological pyramids gives us the idea and it shows the feeding of different organisms or different ecosystems. So if you consider the different pyramids, so we get a relationship that this at each trophic levels there are some organisms which are on the top level. So the top organisms actually feed on the bottom levels. So that idea you can get from the ecological pyramids. So if you consider the pyramid of number, even consider the pyramid of energy and the pyramid of biomass, we know that there are different trophic levels and which organisms feeds on what. We can get an idea for just by looking at ecological pyramids. So if you see an ecological pyramids and you see that different levels, trophic level 1, trophic level 2, trophic level 3, so you will have an idea that which organisms is feeding what. So that idea you can get by just looking at the ecological pyramids. The second point, it shows the efficiency of energy transfer. Just by looking at the pyramids of energy, you can have an idea that which ecological pyramids, by which the food chains or which trophic levels, how much energy is there. So you can have an idea about the efficiency of energy transfer. If you calculate, if you measure the amount of, let us say, energy at different trophic levels, so you will have an idea about the efficiency of energy transfer at each trophic level. So by just looking at the graphical representations of the ecological pyramids, you have that idea about the efficiency of energy transfer at each level. Now let us see the third point. This gives an idea, and this is very, very important point. This gives an idea about the condition of the ecosystem. So the condition of the ecosystem can be monitored and further damage can be prevented. Now, what is this point? Let me explain this. Suppose you know that there is a terrestrial ecosystem, and in the terrestrial ecosystem you measure, say, number. You are doing a study on the pyramid of number. You are just, an ecosystem is there and you are just counting the number of organisms at each trophic level. Normally you see the pyramid of at terrestrial ecosystems, most of the cases there is a pyramid of number can be upright. So upright, you are looking at a grassland ecosystem, you see the grasses, the number is more, you have calculated. Then the primary consumer, you see that the number should be less than the grasses. The secondary consumer should be less than the primary consumer. But when you are doing an experiment, you are going on the field and you are measuring, you find that the secondary consumer, the number of secondary consumer is more, or it is nearly equal to the layer of the primary consumer. You are just counting the number. By counting the number itself, you see that suddenly, normally what would happen? Normally there will be a pyramid like this where the producers are more, primary consumers is less than the producer, secondary consumer is less than the primary consumer, and we have the top, the tertiary consumer. This should normally be case in a grassland ecosystem. But when you are studying ecological pyramid, and if you see that suddenly you find that this level, the number of the secondary consumer is now getting nearly equal to the primary consumer. So you find, or number of the secondary consumer is more than the primary consumer. Then what this will give you, this idea will give you, you will know that there is something problem in that ecosystem. Something may have happened to this primary consumer, so the number is getting less. There can be some disease outbreak among the primary consumers, so the number has gone down. There can be some other cases. So the number of primary consumer will go down and the number of secondary consumers is more. So by looking at the ecological pyramids, you can have an idea about the condition of the ecosystem. So if you know this, if you suddenly find the number of secondary consumers is getting more as compared to the primary consumers, this should not be the case. So there should be some problem in that ecosystem. So you have to study, you look at that what is actually happening, and further damage can be prevented, because you should know that if at trophic level there is a change, certain drastic change in one of the trophic level, it will actually hamper the whole ecosystem. If, say, what would happen if this secondary consumers number goes up as compared to the primary consumers? So number of secondary consumers, they will start feeding on the primary consumer at a given time, that the primary consumers level will ultimately go down. Once that primary consumer ultimately goes down, now what would happen? Now the secondary consumers will have no food left. So ultimately they will also die. If the secondary consumers dies, the tertiary consumers will also have no food and they will also die. So once that happens, so the ecosystem actually will fail. So just by looking at the ecological pyramids, you have an idea about the condition of the ecosystem, and further damage can be prevented if you study ecological pyramids. That can be, I have taken an example of a pyramid of number, that will be true also for the pyramid of biomass and the pyramid of energy. So by studying the ecological pyramids, we can study about the ecosystem as a whole. We can check whether the condition of the ecosystem is okay or not, and if there is a problem, we can actually further prevent that by looking at which aspect the problem is there. So these are the few of the importance of the ecological pyramids. Now we'll come to very important points. We'll talk about the limitations. Ecological pyramid is good. We know we can study all those things. That's the graphical representations which will ultimately there for the ecosystem. But there are some limitations. Let us look at the limitations. The first limitation, first drawback of this ecological pyramid is that the system does not consider the possibility of same species at different levels. Now what is this? Remember that in the last lectures, we have taken an example of human. We have said that humans is there at different ecosystems, different food chains, not ecosystems. At different food chains, humans occupy different trophic levels. That example we had taken. Now I'll explain that. So I'll clear this portion. So I'll explain which limitations is there and what are the drawbacks. So what normally a pyramid is there, the pyramid will be, so this is trophic level number 1, this is trophic level number 2, this is trophic level number 3, and this is trophic level number 4. Let us say this is pyramid of number again. So let us say what are the trophic levels. So trophic level number 1 is the producer. Let us consider again, this is a normal grassland ecosystems. So we have the producers like this. Now grassland ecosystem, there are many type of producers. Now we are considering food web, not a simple food chain. So in food web, we have seen that there are different producers. So producers in a grassland ecosystem can be grasses, it can be some other crops, it can be some, let us say, small shrubs, small trees, big trees, all that can be there in an ecosystem. So let us say humans, they feed direct in one of the food chain in that ecosystem, humans feed directly on the green plants. So where you will put the humans there then? You will put that humans in the primary, not in the primary. So I'm very sorry. So primary we have, what we have? We have crops, we have grasses, we have small trees, we have shrubs, we have large trees. All this will be in the first trophic level or the producer level. Now let us say humans, they feed directly on the green plants. So where we'll put the humans? Humans will be in the primary consumer. So we will put humans over here. For a given food chain, let us the food chain, there are crops. So crop, consider this food chain, crop, human. So where crop is the producer, trophic level number 1. Humans is the primary consumer, trophic level number 2. So humans are there in trophic level number 2. So consider this is an food chain, crop and human. So it becomes humans in trophic level number 2. Now let us say there is one more food chain over here in this ecosystem, the ecosystem we are considering. So there is one more food chain. Let us say grasses, goat, then human. So in that same ecosystem, we have one more food chain. I write over here, grass, goat, human. Now where you will put human? Grasses is there. This is the producer. Goat becomes the primary consumer at trophic level number 2. Then humans. Humans become in trophic level number 3. In this food chain, grass, goat, human. Human is in trophic level number 3. Now tell me, if you consider a pyramid of number, humans also occupies trophic level number 2 and trophic level number 3. But while calculating, while counting the numbers, you count the number of human as a whole. Now that is a limitation, that is a drawback. In the ecological pyramids, the system does not consider the possibility that same species can occupy different levels in an ecosystem. Are you getting my point? Humans can be at the trophic level number 2 as well as trophic level number 3. But while calculating the pyramid of number, what do? We calculate human as a whole. We do not consider that humans is there in trophic level number 2 or trophic level number 3. We take a simple food chain, we consider a simple food chain like that, and we calculate the number of individuals. I am giving an example of human, that can be in any other species as well. So ecological pyramids does not consider this. So that is a drawback. That's a drawback of the ecological pyramids. It does not consider that same species can occupy at different levels. Okay, look at the second limitations or the drawback. Ecological pyramids do not deliver any concept relation to variation of season or climate. Now, ecological pyramids does not take any consideration that which climate is or season is this. We all know that there are many plants which are seasonal. There are many animals which the number they rise according to the seasons, different seasons. Ecological pyramids does not consider that. They say that at a given time this happens. They do not consider that in seasonal changes may occur. So calculating the ecological pyramids, again I am telling, suppose you are looking at the season. You are looking at an ecosystem like this. We have the primary, there are crops, grasses, small trees. Now let us say it's a rainy season. In the rainy season, you will find there are small grasses coming up, many plants has growing, there are higher number of certain insect species has gone up because they're breeding, after breeding season the number of population has gone up, and the same ecosystem you will see in some other season the number is completely different. So ecological pyramids do not consider that the seasonal changes, it is not considered. So that's a limitation. So for ecological pyramids, this is the limitation because seasonal changes are not considered as well. So ecological pyramids do not consider the seasonal changes, they just randomly take at a given period of time this happens, and they stipulate that this will be same throughout the year, but that's not true. There will be that's different for different seasons. Now the most important drawback is the last point. Saprophytes and decomposers are not considered in ecological pyramids. saprophytes and decomposers are not considered in ecological pyramids. Although decomposers are very important, for the ecosystem, but they are not considered in any of the ecological pyramids. So we have seen the pyramids of number, we have seen the pyramids of biomass, we have seen the pyramids of energy. We have never talked about the decomposers in our pyramid because it is not considered. So these are the limitations. These are the drawbacks of the ecological pyramids. Although ecological pyramids, the graphical representations, it shows many things about the ecosystem. It can give you an idea about all the different things which is going on in the ecosystems, but there are some limitations. I hope this part is clear. We have talked about what are ecological pyramids, the 3 different types of ecological pyramids, and now we have discussed about the limitations and importance.